Hey, how's it going, everybody? Pragmatic Addict here. I'm back with Jacob, of course, for the 8th episode of Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead revival series on Paramount Plus. So, I'm just gonna get right into it. In this first episode, the first segment of this episode, I was actually pretty hyped for, which is kind of strange because we actually see old Beavis and Butthead again. And I will say, I said this before, but if the episodes with these two versions of Beavis and Butthead, these older versions, if the episodes, the premises alone feel necessary, then I'm all for it. Which I gotta say, this one felt fucking necessary. This one felt hype. So this one is called Two Stupid Men, and we actually see older Beavis and Butthead in jury duty. Yes, this episode shows Beavis and Butthead in jury duty, and it goes pretty much exactly how you would expect, and also how you would hope for, where it actually shows Beavis and Butthead, at the table with all the other, people in the jury duty, and they're actually voting on, whether or not they think that this person is guilty of the crimes, which, without spoiling too much, I think that you guys can kind of guess whose side Beavis and Butthead go on to. Where it actually shows, the whole table. It's like a montage. They're going, one by one down, the line. And they're like, guilty, guilty. And then it shows Beavis and Butthead, and they're like, not guilty. And then the lead is like, okay, why do you say that they're not guilty? And they're like, because this guy's cool. And before we go on further to this episode, I will say that, when it, at this point where it actually cuts to the commentary, I actually think that this one, as far as the season goes, was one of the more, classic feeling ones where it's just, it's the roasts and the comments that Beavis and Butthead are saying to the episode, but also just the video that, just happens to be playing. I'm just like, of course, which is actually WAP by fucking Cardi B. But as the episode goes on, it doesn't just go to the route of, everybody pretty much being against Beavis and Butthead for their illogical decisions. But it gets better because we actually see that the guy is, getting charged with manslaughter, which we've seen in past Beavis and Butthead, nonsense. Whenever Beavis hears, a word that he thinks is gnarly and he gets fixated on it, something like manslaughter, he just starts blurting out and just screaming it throughout the entire fucking episode, where the person that's kind of, running the jury duty just pretty much gets fed up with Beavis. And I will say, this episode, it kind of reminded me a lot of the second movie. Not just the fact that we see Beavis and Butthead once again, but so we get to a part in the episode where they're playing the tape where, the person who gets fed up with Beavis, she's like, you know what? I'll just replay the tape. Maybe these guys can get something out of it for once. And so she replays the episode, and Butthead's like, whoa, wait a minute. Did you see that? And he's like, rewind the tape, and he points something out, which I'm not going to spoil what it is, even though it's not that big of a fucking deal. But to kind of give you guys an idea, it's something really stupid and really immature that everybody else is like, wait a minute, he's right. Did you guys see that? And they see something extremely important to the case where Butthead and Beavis just noticed something else to their stupid brains, where they're just focused on that. And it kind of felt like that of the second movie where they're just playing with buttons and they're making the rocket ship do the thing. And they actually get mistaken for geniuses. It goes on like that where they notice something really stupid in the tape where the person's like, well, I'll be damned. You guys might have cracked the case. And I will say this episode felt, I guess, fine, but just fine. It feels very borrowed from the movie, again, in the sense of kind of how things kind of play out, as well as introducing us to, again, older Beavis and Butthead. It just felt like it could have been more original, and it could have been more funny. There are comedic moments, there are, ways that the story kind of plays out, the episode that, how it plays out, that work, but it never feels really like it went all out. It just kind of feels fine, and I feel like it didn't, it wasn't that original as it could have been.
Personally, I thought it was just a little bit lazy. They could have, they could have went a little out with it. It's them in jury duty. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
I mean, there is 1,000 ways it could have gone that would have made it funnier. They could have had them. They could have had the defendant be a hot chick, and they're all not guilty. They're just all trying to bang the...
And that makes more sense, too.
I prefer the Johnny Bravo jury duty special than this, whatever it was. I mean, you have Johnny Bravo going, you're out of order, you're out of order, this machine is out of order.
Is that an actual episode?
Yeah, it's an actual... But anyway, and that's a kid's show, and they freaking... they freaking blew it out of the park with that episode in comparison to this. I'm watching this, I'm like, yeah, I'm chuckling here and there, but it's just here and there, not...
Exactly. It didn't feel original. It felt very borrowed. Like, again, the idea, the premise, it sounds funny. It's like, well, it's like I said earlier, if you're going to do an episode with older Beavis and Butthead, I want it to feel at least like, okay, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to be honest. I want to see this. We have to see this. And this sounds like that. But when you watch it, it just feels like they did just enough to make the episode happen, and it felt very, like, reminiscent of the second movie. Overall, I'm going to give this part of the episode a mixed to positive review. I'm feeling more on the mixed side.
I'm going to give it I'm going to be honest. I'm going to give it a 1.
Wow, out of 10. Damn!
I mean, it made me laugh, but, like, It's like you're saying, like, it's them. They're older. They could have done a lot with it. They
exactly.
Done so much more than they could have done with them as, teenagers. I mean, you're limited as a teenager.
Exactly.
But as an adult, there's no limit for what they could have done with them.
Now, this next episode, I will say I was way more hyped for, which this episode is called Freaky Friday, which obviously we know the story of Freaky Friday. But I do want to say something which is kind of different, is that, like, throughout this revival series, there's been a lot of episodes that I was surprised were even, like, premises, where I'm just like, dude, we're 9 seasons in or whatever, how have we not gotten this yet? But I gotta say, this one didn't feel that necessary or that needed. I mean, it sounds fun, but it just feels like something where it's like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? And I gotta say, the episode, to me at least, kind of felt like that as a whole. Which, yes, it shows, so the episode starts off showing Beavis and Butthead at the store that they're in, and they're talking about, it opens up with them talking about how they watched this movie called Freaky Friday the other day, and they're commenting on it, and they're doing something in the fucking store that pisses off a customer, where he eventually comes and smacks their heads together, and then when they wake up, they're like, whoa, what just happened? And the thing that they're doing, it was by the fridge, which they left open. And so where they landed on opposite sides of the fridge, right? So they wake up, they're looking at each other through the fridge. They think that they're staring at their reflections, which is they're seeing the other person, haha. Where they think that, they just swapped bodies. And so, like, what I thought was kind of funny is, like, they're like, so again, Beavis and Butthead are looking at through opposite sides of the fridge, thinking that they're looking at their reflections, which is the other. And so they're testing it. They're like, wait a minute, let's test this out. Beavis, do you like nachos? And Beavis is like, yes. And he's like, whoa, we're each other. Again, it doesn't sound like something that needs to be done. It just sounds like something that's, like, fun enough and could work. And I think that that's just kind of how the episode feels. There's, this episode doesn't really feel like a standout. There's just stuff throughout the episode, some stuff that works better than others. And there's just some stuff that just feels a lot like filler, where you're just like, really? You couldn't go a little bit further than that? Which kind of goes to how Jacob said in the past episode. I just feel like with an episode like this, the opportunities are endless. The routes that this episode could go down, the creative efforts that they could have gone out with, they could have done anything with an episode like this. And it feels like it just did enough to work. Now, again, there are, some parts of this episode that worked better than the others. There's, the scene where they're actually in school and Beavis has to, like, take a piss, but he's refusing to because he doesn't want to touch Butthead's wiener.
Thank you, Mr. Van Driessen. I appreciate it, even though I'm a total dumbass named Beavis.
You're very welcome. Beavis, I'm sorry, Butthead, do you need to go to the bathroom?
I do, but I don't want to touch Beavis's wiener. You better not. Leave my wiener alone, dumbass.
Which I'm like, okay, that makes sense for a Beavis episode. See? With a Beavis and Butthead spin on Freaky Friday, that sounds just about right. And there's also a time where, towards the later half of the episode, where they actually get into, like, a huge argument. So they start, like, beating the fucking living shit out of themselves, thinking that they're hurting the other when they're just beating the crap out of themselves. Now, I will say, the commentary piece of this episode, I had a lot of fun with it. I will say it was one of the funner ones that I think I had. But just, like, obviously, we know that the commentary pieces don't connect to the episodes themselves. So it's like, we're just transitioned randomly into this commentary piece where they're themselves again. And I thought for what it was funny. But just as a transition and then going back to them being, one another, it was just kind of weird. It felt a little off. But the commentary piece was fun. But now I will say, getting to the ending of this episode, they actually meet up with the guy that kicked their asses in the beginning, because they come up with this idea where they're like, well, we need him to like kick our asses again so that we can get switched back. And so they meet this guy, and I will say, it goes down a route that you think is like, oh no, oh fuck, what's gonna happen? And then it kind of switched to another thing where you're wavering on this aspect of like, okay, well, so is that gonna happen? And then it does some twistier writing where something else happens. So I will say the ending, for what it was and for how, I guess, unpredictable it could have been, it was. And I will say that overall, I thought this episode was fun. I'm going to give this one a positive review.
I give it a positive review, too. It's just, there was this scene.
I think it's that scene that I'm thinking about, too. There was a scene where I think that you were laughing the hardest you've laughed out of the season since the Beekeepers episode.
It was kind of like that scene.
The scene in this episode where they're just beating the shit out of themselves. Man, that made the episode. But yes, guys, I know that this episode was a little bit late. We actually got really busy yesterday. Hereditary actually re-released theatrically in our city, so that was going on. But yes, guys, we thought that we would get this episode out a little bit earlier today just to make up for the late day, but there are a lot of movies coming out this week. We got Pearl, we've got the Jeepers Creepers Reborn film, which we are definitely going to see. The Woman King came out, See How They Run came out. There's a lot of movies that came out. The remake of Goodnight Mommy, I think, is fucking out today. So, whatever review we get to next, it will be soon, and hopefully we will see you guys in that next video. But let us know what you guys thought about the video down below, as well as this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're sorry we're a little bit late, but we hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.